Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephen McDonald, and I bring to you all today Baltimore in Conversation. Today's objective will be discussing National Women and Girls HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. I'm here with some friends of mine who are gonna help me have the conversation, and so we're gonna just kick off with some introductions. I'll pass it to you.
Okay, my name is Rolita West, and I am the Director of Social Work and Case Management at Johns Hopkins University.
And I am Carmeletta Abel. I am the HIV and AIDS Manager of Johns Hopkins University.
Fantastic. My colleagues here at the Bartlett Specialty Practice do amazing work day to day in helping people not only gain access to HIV prevention and treatment, but also in thinking of supportive services that promote retention and wellness for the overall individual. So I'm happy to be here. This is my stomping grounds. I was with Bartlett for about 5 years or so, and so I'm so glad to be back with some really good friends of mine to hear about women and HIV and how we can keep women in the conversation when it comes to HIV prevention and HIV treatment. And so in thinking about this Awareness Day, it really starts us off in thinking about exactly how are women in the conversation. And so I want us to start off with just let's think about it. We can start from a historical lens or we can narrow into 2023. But what has women and being incorporated in discussions around HIV prevention from your perspectives been like?
From my perspective, I believe that women has largely been left out of the conversation. Even if we go back to the beginning of the epidemic,
Yes.
what we heard about, just the myths and stigmas, it all started around a gay man disease. And that was from the White House, from the top. That's what they discussed in the briefings. When they didn't want to talk about HIV and AIDS or didn't want to throw money at it, it was still about a gay man's disease. And then even if we move into different cultures, and we move into the Black culture, I mean, even then, we didn't want to touch it or say anything about it in our churches, in our schools, in our communities, because it was a gay man's disease. So women, we weren't a part of the discussion from the beginning.
Yeah, we weren't a part of the discussion, and I found it to be like a problem, especially today, because there's still a lot of people who are misinformed about HIV and prevention and who actually can benefit from it, right? From treatment. And actually, when I was in college, I actually did, my final paper was on underserved women in urban communities, because they are underserved, because they're not aware of the services that they can access. And it's not just about, okay, so you're a man that has sex with other men, the services are only available to you. It's also available to women and young women as well, who are interested in protecting themselves from HIV and who are interested in receiving services to suppress their viral load if they are HIV positive. So
Agreed. It goes into, I like, Rolita, you started to just go into overall the disparity that has taken place with HIV. And even thinking about HIV in women, it takes me to, in 2021, women actually made up 25% of all new HIV diagnoses here in Maryland. Yet I do want to highlight that of that 25%, 77.9% were among non-Hispanic Black women. And so you're further perpetuating that stigma and that disparity, because again, the education to inform people in the ways in which they can be proactive in taking charge of their health is missing.
yeah.
And so it then takes us to a place of, this is where we are. It's somewhat similar to where we've been. How do we make actionable steps in our way forward to ensure that women are a part of the conversation, are knowledgeable that HIV prevention tools and HIV prevention treatment tools as well are for them? So what are some ideas that come to mind for the both of you?
So I think that social media. Everybody's on social media. If you go to social media, when they talk about HIV or PrEP, they always have men that have sex with men on photos. It's very rare that you'll see heterosexual couples, and I feel women who have sex with women. I feel that is important too, because although they are low risk, there's still a possibility there for them to contract HIV, especially if one of the partners is bisexual.
Carmeletta, do me a favor for viewers who are new to all of this information. Can you tell us a little bit about what PrEP is?
Yeah. So PrEP is pre-exposed prophylaxis. It's a pill that is taken daily to prevent you from contracting HIV. So it's 98% effective. There's also something else called PEP, which is post-exposure prophylaxis. So if you feel that you were exposed to HIV within 72 hours, you want to report to the ED so then you can be treated for it. And even if you are on PrEP, you still qualify for PEP if you felt that you were exposed to it. So yes, condoms is an option to prevent you from contracting STIs, as well as some prevention from contracting HIV as well, but there is an extra layer of protection for individuals who are interested in PrEP. And say if you know that you have a partner who is HIV positive, and maybe they're undetectable, there is still an option for you to put yourself on PrEP as just a safety net for yourself.
Yes, women, PrEP is for women. PrEP was approved in 2012. We're in 2023, and we still here when we're doing our on-the-ground efforts.
Yeah.
What is PrEP?
Yeah.
PrEP is an effective tool. Much like Carmeletta just said, it is an option. It's that additional option that gives you that additional layer of protection and protecting you against HIV. And again, this is for someone who's HIV negative. It means you're at an elevated risk given where you might live. When we think about susceptibility, I think we have to get away from just, it's for people who have many sexual partners. That's not necessarily the case. Instead, it is dependent upon where you reside, because it may not take 3-4 sexual partners. It could take that one or that two, depending upon the prevalence of HIV in that given community. And so that's why it's important to engage. I think there's two charges here. As healthcare workers, it is our responsibility to inform and educate everyone when it comes to HIV prevention and treatment, because anyone who is sexually active is in fact susceptible. Not just gay men, not just men who have sex. If you're having sex, you're susceptible. It then goes into, it's important for people to engage in these conversations. It's important to have an awareness of what's going on in your community so that you can protect yourself with all the resources that are available. It takes me back to when I was growing up, where there was this more communal way of doing things. The way that your neighbors would interact with you, and it was just okay to do. It was a conversation that happened among us because we were more for us. There's been some other things that have happened over time that I think has kind of started a divide. However, again, we know where we were, we know where we are. What can we do that's actionable in getting us to where we need to be to really make HIV non-existent in our community? New HIV cases. Again, Carmeletta went to mention undetectable, viral suppression. Belita, do you know about U equals U?
Yes.
Tell us about U equals U and what that means for someone who is living with HIV.
It is possible someone with living with HIV not to pass it to someone else. It is possible that if you are undetectable and if you have sex with another person, you do not pass it on to them.
Yep. And that's such powerful messaging. It is important for everyone to know that HIV is not what it once was.
No.
When we go back to the 1980s, it was that death sentence. Even when we think about the medicine, the antiretroviral treatment back then, that was treating, it was toxic. It was making people sick. It was increasing the days, but were people really living given the circumstances that they had to endure and the type of medical treatment that was available back then? However, now we've made so many advancements across the HIV care continuum where we have effective medication that can help someone living with HIV become virally suppressed And once you achieve that undetectable viral load, as Walida just mentioned, the chances of you transmitting HIV to someone is 0 to none.
Okay.
And we just know that people have options.
They do.
People have options. You were kind of getting in a zero different relationship.
Yeah.
So tell us more about zero different and what that means for the HIV negative partner.
Zero different relationships. So, and that's
HIV negative, one
Yeah,
person, yeah.
so relationships like that. So I have come across some people who were in a relationship with someone who was HIV positive or HIV negative. Sometimes HIV positive individuals may, forget to take their medicine or something like that. So it's important to consider PrEP when it comes to that. So like if they do forget to take their medication, or if their viral load was to become detectable, then that's protecting you against contracting it, because with U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable, oftentimes in a relationship you may not use protection anymore, right? So you just want to have that extra protection for yourself in case if that were to ever happen with your partner.
And that boils down to the power of the individual.
Yeah.
We release that when we put it all into another person, but that doesn't have to be the scenario. Instead, if there's a case, whatever, given the circumstance it is, the type of relationship, the HIV negative individual has an option to take PrEP, because that empowers them to be in charge of their sexual health. And as well as we continue with this more status neutral education, because we know that people who are living with HIV also have the option to become virally suppressed by engaging in care and becoming undetectable so that they won't transmit HIV to anyone. Mm-hmm. So I think the key takeaway, given where we are in the advancements that we made, is that people have options.
They do.
And that's what's most important, given, especially when we start to think about the disparities. Mm-hmm. So as I had mentioned, of the 25% of the 195 cases among women in Maryland, 77.9% were among non-Hispanic Black females.
Yeah.
And so we then take things a step further in saying, when it comes to our efforts and when it comes to equity, sometimes we need to do more here. Given the numbers, given the pattern, given the theme, sometimes we need to do more in certain areas so that people can be given a chance to, again, take advantage of said options, because options have not always been an option available in certain communities.
Right, exactly right. And I think that representation is important.
Yeah. Representation
in the medical field is important when having this conversation. Representation in, here, like representation in the medical field, representation in the schools, representation in the PSAs, the public service announcements that come out. Because I have to admit, I have noticed an increase in PSAs on PrEP and HIV medications on TV.
Yeah.
But what I haven't saw is representation of Black women in those PSAs.
Right.
And we are at risk. I haven't seen that representation yet. And when I have seen women on those commercials, they were more in a supportive role, like they were a mother or a friend or of someone that was infected, not the person that was infected.
Yeah.
And we know that media is important. Social media is important.
Yeah.
Representation is important. If you see yourself in that arena, you are more likely to go seek it out.
Yeah.
You would know that it's for you. To be honest, I'm not sure if I was working in this field, I'm not sure if I would know about PrEP.
Oh my goodness.
And I can also, just to add to that, I noticed, at least in the Baltimore area, I noticed they also put billboards up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if we're gonna publicize this and make it to where, when people are riding around, they can see this, make it to where it just doesn't serve one population, make it to where it serves everybody. because like Rolita said, like there's not that much advertisement about how it benefits Black women and young women. There's not that much. And then just to go back to when you were saying about options that's out there, some people are not comfortable with taking 1 pill a day. So for PrEP, there's a such thing called Apretude, which is an injectable PrEP that just recently came out.
That's for women as well.
That's for women as well. So, and they recently came out with, if a woman is HIV positive, there is an injectable for HIV called Cabenuva. Yeah. So there's options.
Yeah. And I think in order for people to be able to engage and take advantage of the services, is that they first have to be informed, and I think we all have a part to play in that, because knowledge is truly power. It takes nothing to share it.
Yeah.
So, post the completion of this interview with Rolita and Carmeletta, share this video, share what you learned from it, because there's power in educating masses, and we all can play a part in bringing that into motion. And so, share the knowledge, share the education. I think I want to ask you all another question. For a woman that is watching this video, who might be interested just as so much as in all of this, but maybe she wanted to take advantage of some services for herself, what might be your first suggestion?
My first suggestion is, oh my gosh, I have a lot of suggestions. And one thing that I like that you talked about earlier is that community approach. And we all can take part. We all can take a part of that community approach. That's why I like the community approach. Yeah. There's things that I want to do at the end of this conversation.
Yeah.
There's some things like getting in contact with schools and the churches in the community, because that's where we are. But the first thing I would do if we were starting at home, just like mothers, fathers, brothers, if you're having conversations with your daughters, and you know, I know some parents feel comfortable about talking about birth control, let's talk about PrEP, or let's have those conversations.
Yeah.
Let's talk about protecting yourself. Having conversations about being open with your provider.
Yep.
I know when my niece was a teenager, she started having her own appointments with her primary care provider. And I encouraged her to be honest with that primary care provider. Like, if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, you can say whatever you want to that doctor, and that doctor will keep it confidential. The importance is keeping you protected and making sure you're safe, and that's important. So just education, it starts at home. We can have the education in school as well. We can have the conversations with the primary care provider. So that is one thought that I have about this.
You have any?
To add to Rolita, I think with relationships or just with people that we are involved with, it can be very uncomfortable to ask, like, well, what is your HIV status? When was the last time you were tested for STIs? Be comfortable with having these conversations, because you're not only protecting others, but you're protecting yourself. You know, and be aware of what your status is yourself. Like, if you know that you're sexually active, routine testing won't hurt. Getting tested every 3 months won't hurt, because at the end of the day, you know what your results are. And, you know, if anything were to come up, you know, okay, I need to seek treatment for this. So become comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations in the beginning.
Absolutely, I love that. Become comfortable with being uncomfortable, because the work that you do at the beginning as it pertains to your sexual health is what will dictate and determine how well you thrive within your health overall. It's so important to have those conversations up front, especially partners, being able to talk to, again, your primary care provider, all of that. It's because at the end of the day, you matter. Because it's something that has to be made about you. You have to be unapologetic when it comes to it. It's not something you have to overly explain. Instead, as you become knowledgeable of these things, you deserve to know your status. So that's would be the first thing. I encourage anyone who is sexually active, anyone who might injection drug users, people who inject drugs, I would encourage people, know your status. know what the risks are. Google.
Right.
In addition to us Google, what are some HIV risk factors, or comment under this video and I will gladly myself respond. It all starts with be unapologetic when it comes to your care and engaging in it, but then also use the resources around you because they're there for you. And again, I don't know no other point to end on other than you matter. Women matter. Women are important and they should be a part of all of these conversations. And I will go to say that specific to HIV, STIs, anything that is trans and that can be transmitted, everyone should be a part of the conversation because again, any and everyone is susceptible. Is there anything the two of you would like to add? This has been an amazing conversation with two amazing women that I admire. So thank you both for being a part of it.
One last thing.
Yeah.
If there is someone out there and you want to get in contact with the provider and you don't know where to start, I think your local health department is a good place to start. You can even call this practice the John G. Bartlett Specialty Practice, and you can call this practice to get tested or to enter into services.
Yes, because I want to see all the programs we're discussing is available at the Bartlett Specialty Practice.
Yes.
And I want to say the two heads of those programs are right here in this interview. So Carmelita, just tell us a bit briefly, if someone was interested in PrEP as well as HIV treatment, how might they get in touch with the program?
Yeah, if someone is interested in PrEP or interested in learning more about HIV treatment, you can give us a call at 410-404-5339. Again, that number is 410-404-5339. And we'll be here to provide you with that information and any needs or any services that you're interested in. We can get you connected.
Yes.
We have social work and case management services. So we talk about, you can meet with a case manager regarding housing, financial assistance, compliance, medication, insurance. So there's a lot of resources to help.
There you all have it. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and remember, share everything that you learned today, and please let us know your thoughts. And that's all. Have a good day, and thank you all for commemorating National Women and Girls HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. Take care.